everybody, welcome to another knitting tutorial with me, Laura, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to do the moss seed stitch rib. And this creates a beautiful fabric, so this will be really good for cuffs and sort of ends of jumpers and things. It's very, very springy, lovely fabric, and it's just a little bit more unusual and a bit different from normal ribbing. So let's begin, shall we? Okay, so for this tutorial we're going to cast on a unit of 4 plus 3. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to do a long tail cast on. If you're brand new to knitting, then do check out my cast on tutorials, then coming back to this video. But we're just going to start off with a slip knot, and then I'm going to do the long tail cast on, and I'm going to cast on a unit of 4. So we're going to work to the 4 times table to begin with. So I've got 3 so far. 4, so that's our first 4. Do another 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I've got my unit of 4. I've cast on 20 stitches, and then once you've got your unit of 4, we're going to do an extra 3 on top of that. So we do 1, 2, and 1 more. 3. So in total I happen to have 23 for this little swatch. So, and like I said, if you're new to knitting and you want to know how to cast on, do check out my various casting on tutorials. There's 3 different ways in total, and I'm just doing the long tail cast on, which creates a nice neat edge. Okay, so then we're going to begin our pattern. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by knitting the first 3. So we're going to start off with 3 knit stitches. So we're going to knit the first 3, so just do a normal knit stitch, two, and 3. Okay, so knitted the first 3, and then we're going to purl 1 stitch. So bring the yarn forward, do a purl stitch, and we're going to purl the next stitch. Okay, then we're just going to repeat that to the last 3 stitches. So we're going to put our yarn back and then knit the next 3. So go into the next stitch and knit the next stitch. So knit the next 3, 1, 2, and 3. Then we bring the yarn forward and we're just going to purl 1 stitch. I'm going to purl 1. Okay, then we repeat that again. We're going to knit the next 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Then purl the next stitch. So bring the yarn forward. So if these knit stitches and purl stitches are too quick for you, then do check out my beginner knit and purl stitch tutorials. Then we go back to knitting 3. We're just going to repeat that all the way to the end. So we're going to knit 3 and then purl just 1. Then purl 1. Then knit 3. Then purl 1. And I always forget how difficult it is knitting on camera. I even choose tiny little knitting needles because of the lack of room. And then up to the last 3, we just end on knitting 3. So 1, 2, and 3. So we knit the last 3. So that's our first row. So just knit 3 and purl 1 all the way across. Then our second row, we are going to start off with just knitting the first one. For our second row, we knit 1, Then we're going to purl one, so we bring the yarn forward, purl one. So we've knitted one and then we've purled one, and then we're going to go back to knitting 3, then purling 1, knitting 3, purling 1 like we did for the first row. So we go back to knitting 3, 1, 2 and 3, then we purl 1, then we knit 3. So it ends up being the same. We're going to do that all the way to the end. Back to a purl 1, then we knit 3, 1, 2 and 3, back to a purl, knit 3, 2 and 3, then we purl 1, back to a knit 3, so knit 3, and then we end on a purl. Then we do a purl, and then we end on just knitting the last one, so we just knit one at the end. Okay, so that is our second row, and you can already start to see the pattern coming, but it will really show itself in the next couple of rows, and then we just repeat those 2 rows. So now we're going to go back to knitting 3 and purling 1, same as our first row. So again, just knit 3 straight away, 1, 2 and 3, and then we purl 1, then we knit 3, and we just repeat that pattern again. So this is the same as the first row, 2 and 3, so knit 3, purl 1, you should end on knit 3, so back to knit 3, purl 1, back to knit 3, two and 3, purl 1, knit 3, 1, 2 and 3, whoops, and then purl 1, and we end on knit 3 for this same first row, so knit the last 3. Okay, so that is our third row, which is the same as our first row, and then our next row is going to be the same as our second row. So what we do there is we start off with a knit 1, purl 1 to begin with, so we just knit the 1 at the beginning of this second row, so knit 1, then we're going to purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, and then we go back to knit 3, purl 1. So we do knit 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we purl 1. Then back to knit 3, and just repeat that pattern all the way up to the last stitch. So 1, 2, 3, then a purl, back to a knit 3, 1, 2 and 3, back to a purl, back to knit 3, 1, 2, 3, and purl 1, knit 3, 2 and 3, and then we end, you've got that purl 1, and then the very last stitch we just knit, so you just knit the last stitch. Okay, so you just repeat those 2 rows over and over again, and you can start to see, if my yarn gets out of the way, you can start to see the ribbing coming together. So if you just repeat those 2 rows, the next row now would be the same as the first row, where we knit 3, purl 1, knit 3, purl 1 all the way to the end. Then you'd go back to a knit 1, purl 1, then knit 3, purl 1 all the way to the end, and you end on just a knit 1, and you would end up with a fabric like this. It's a nice flexible ribbing fabric. So that is the moss or seed stitch rib, just a slightly different, more interesting ribbing technique for cuffs for sweaters and jumpers and things, and yeah, creates a lovely fabric. I'll do a couple more rows and we can just see this one work up, and then I'll come back and show you what that looks like. So now we go back to a knit 3, purl 1 all the way across. There we go, I've done 2 more rows, and you can clearly see the ribbing starting to come together. There we go. It's really a beautiful stitch, and it's identical both sides, so it's completely reversible as well, which is lovely. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I hope you managed to follow along. Hopefully you'll give it a try, a little bit different, a little bit more of an interesting ribbing, I believe. And thanks for joining me. Let me know in the comments below if you've got any particular stitches that you would like to learn, and I'll think about them as tutorials. Thanks for watching. Bye.